My name is Nicole Palagano, and I am the Director of Personal Counseling here at Bloomfield College. And so we're a small department. It's me and one other counselor, and our primary role is to meet with students in personal counseling sessions, and then to also do some outreach and prevention programs on different mental health concerns. So this is just a quiet space that we have for students who want to come in and either meditate or pray or connect with their spiritual selves. We have it here so that they know that when they're on campus that they're always going to have a space that they can come and really connect, because that is a key component to mental health, is being able to pray, being able to be spiritual, being able to be in the moment, for sure. Well, a lot of our students use drugs and alcohol as an escape. So when we struggle with mental health, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right? It's overwhelming. It can be distressing, and we're unhealthy. And when we're unhealthy, we don't feel good. So drugs and alcohol are a great escape. Let me get high. Let me get drunk. Let me feel less pain for this moment. And so unfortunately, it's a coping mechanism that a lot of our students turn to. I can say that in this office we see more females than males. It's also part of the population of the college, but there is definitely a stigma. Our college population is mostly men of color or people of color, and so there's actually an organization called the Steve Fund that does all this research that talks about how people of color are less likely to seek out help for their mental health concerns, and while they might have higher instances of mental health concerns, the odds of them seeking out help are even lower, right? And so there's a definite stigma there for our students. So the difference is we have a higher population of females coming in, and the males aren't getting the message because for some reason to ask for help, it might be a sign of weakness, right?
Within my 2 years, I actually met a few females that were in domestic relationships, which it was tough for them to get out of, just because they felt as though that they didn't have anybody else to go to, being that they were so far away from home. And then I also met quite a bit of students who actually felt like that they were dealing with anxiety problems. I know one girl actually she ended up dropping out of school just because she felt as though that she couldn't mentally take it.
In 2011, I was diagnosed with panic disorder. So that basically means that I have about 7 to 10 panic attacks in a day. It's like your body doesn't know how to stop it. It just keeps happening over and over again. And I suffered from that for about 2 years. And then one day it just kind of stopped, but not on its own. I had to do a little bit of work to get to that place.
I actually have a friend personally who I talk to basically every other week, because she feels now she's going for her master's and she feels like she wants to give up or she wants to quit just because of the mental load for her. But I just tried to encourage her and make sure, let her know that she can go on and do anything that she sets her mind to.
Well, I usually tell people that I did cognitive therapy, which is kind of hard for me to define, but it's basically, in my own words, I would say it's reteaching your mind what it needs to think about. So if your brain tells you one thing and you know that it's wrong, you got to redirect it in the right direction.
Social anxiety is a big one, again tied into the social media. There's a lot of our students struggle with substance abuse issues or eating disorders, and unhealthy relationships, a lot of domestic violence and sexual assault concern. Even with our faculty are more apt to promote counseling services, and I do my best to try and get into as many classes as possible to kind of take away the stigma. It's not about counseling, it's about come talk to Nicole or come talk to Krista, and kind of take out that even counseling term out there, because it's about you helping you, so that's the message that we try to convey. But there definitely is a stigma, unfortunately. People are afraid to come up and chat. And
up until just this semester, we didn't have a policy, a campus-wide policy. Now we do, and the reason why we have it now is because this has been handled piecemeal. And there's been instances, I know personally that there's been an instance where a student I felt was in need, and I didn't know where to take the student. I didn't know what to do with the student, and it was kind of like in the breach, and it's not fair to the student. So I'm glad that they addressed it. We'll see how the implementation of that is, but we were just talking about bureaucracies too. This is another layer of bureaucracy that's, who's going to handle these cases, how many people are going to be on staff, etc.
So it's, again, no different from physical health, right? We want to exercise, we want to eat healthy, and we think about that every day, right? Whether or not we do it, we might think about it. And so same thing for mental health. We want to have check-in points. So things that we can do for ourselves is to say, am I being my best me? Am I being the best me that I can be today, right? Am I being a good student, a good boyfriend, a good girlfriend? Am I being a good daughter, son, whatever it might be? And if the answer to that is no, that's kind of the check-in point.
A lot of people come into the gym because of certain things going on in the outside life. So they come in here and they start training and whatnot, and you start working on some of those stressors that you had on your outside life. And you start to forget a lot of things that are going on. And it's a good therapy.
So there's meditation. Meditation helps us be in the moment, in the now, right? When we feel anxious or worried, we're worried about something either in the future or something that happened in the past. Very rarely are we worried about right this moment, right? And so that's why meditation works, is because it calms us, it grounds us, it makes us mindful of what we're doing in the moment, our breathing, our bodies, the experience that we're experiencing.
In my last semester, I was dealing with a lot of personal things at home. So with me being down in North Carolina and my mom being homesick in New Jersey, mentally it took a lot out of me. And then so I was not only worried about her, I was focusing on my schoolwork and trying to make sure that I can graduate.
If you'll allow me, I can tell you one story that I love to tell when it comes to stigma, right? So years ago, I was at a different school at the time, but it holds true to this day. I was in a personal counseling position, and I would go into a classroom, and it was a small campus, and so I knew a lot of the students outside, just from the smallness of the campus. And there was this one student, and he was typical macho guy, and every time I would come into his class, he'd take out his phone or he'd go to the bathroom. He had absolutely no interest in hearing what a counselor had to say. And he was like, no disrespect, he's like, but I'm good, I don't need counseling. And that was kind of the message he would convey to me. And sure enough, one day, I'm sitting in my office and I get a knock on the door, and there's, this guy. And he said, hey, Nicole, you got a minute? And I said, sure, come on in. And he sat down and he just really just kind of broke down. What had happened was his mother had passed away, and she was in a different state. And he went to book a flight, and he gets to the airport, and he realized that he was so upset that when he booked the flight, he booked it for a month out, and it would have cost him money to exchange money he didn't have. And so he's like, okay, and then he got in his car and he headed on the turnpike, and he got about 2 miles and his transmission just died. And here he was, devastated at the loss of his mother, unable to get to her. He didn't have the resources, he didn't have friends or family who could just write him a check for $1,000 to say, go. And he just felt really alone and devastated in that moment. And he sat in my office and just let himself be, and allowed himself to cry, and allowed himself to feel what he needed to feel in that moment. And from that moment on, every time I visited a classroom or, saw him in the hallway or whatever it was, he never, shared with anybody else other than me in that moment what was going on, but he would say, listen up, he'd say, counselor in the room, everybody shut up, put your phones away,
Singles. I have a $5 bill. You got change?
I do have change.
I know they have free water cases somewhere here.
Tiana, what do you think about when you're training?
I like to think about myself running on the beach in the summertime with my perfect six-pack and my body feeling healthy and strong, and I want to make that a reality.
I remember that when I was discharged from the hospital, they suggested that I don't tell anyone that I was hospitalized. And I was like, my therapist and my mom, and I asked them why. I want to tell my friends where I've been and that what happened. And they're like, they're not going to look at you the same.
Because of stigma.
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
I think it's a little ridiculous because it doesn't define me. And I used to, I used to cling to whatever the symptoms were. I'm like, so I have panic disorder. Okay, then I am panic disorder. This is who I am, but it's not who I am.
And so the message I'd want to convey is that there is help, and that, the strength that you can find to ask for help is truly the strength. It's not strength to do it alone. It's strength to get the help. I often use, when I visit classrooms or promote mental health, their counseling, I'll hand out lifesavers as candy, because everybody loves candy, but also it's that metaphor, like, nowadays we are fortunate in a time when we realize that mental health is a true concern, and that there are hotlines. There's the Texas Christ line, so you can send a text and within minutes have a counselor respond back to you, and it's free, it's confidential, it's anonymous, it's so many levels, so you don't have to be alone.